Nyatanwa, Nyatuk Gunizmara, Nyatu Nyat Linyong, Reuben Berg. Hello everybody, as Kate said, I'm a Gunizmara man, and my name is Reuben Berg. Gunizmara, our people, we come from southwestern Victoria, so down near Warrnambool. Framlingham is where the majority of my family comes from, and it's a real pleasure to be here tonight on Wurundjeri and Boonwurrung country to be able to talk to you about this idea of eco-cities and the potentials for what Melbourne might be. So, from my perspective, what do I think an EcoMelbourne might look like? Well, I think there's a few really important things to consider when I contemplate that idea. And I think it's about how, it's an EcoMelbourne that embraces and engages the place that it's actually at, that actually recognises where it is, recognises the landscape, recognises the environment, recognises the history of that place. That's what an eco-city of the future, of what Melbourne would look like to me. And that comprises a few different things that it needs to embrace to be able to do that. One of those is to embrace the language of this place. And so that can be involved by recognising the traditional names we have of the places all around us. It can also be by reflecting on the current names we have and thinking if they are the right names to still have today. Do we need to have so many parts of our city named after dead white guys? Is that necessary? Can we find new ways of celebrating different things as a way of establishing this as a place for the future? Can we look at the river, at the Yarra River, and recognise that although it was well-intentioned to be called the Yarra, that's not actually its traditional name. As I understand it, the story goes there that the European explorers were talking with the traditional owners, saying, what is the name of this river? They wanted to name it a traditional name, give it its proper name, and the answer they got was Yarra Yarra, which means flowing, because they were pointing to a part of the river where there used to be a waterfall. Unfortunately, a spot that was blown up to make the river work more effectively for the people here, and so that waterfall is no longer here. But Yarra Yarra was the name they were told because it just meant the flowing part. That's what they thought they were asking about. So they said, all right, we'll call it the Yarra. Birrarung is in fact the traditional name of the Yarra, which means river of mist. And I think that's a much more powerful thing to be able to give it back that name that it had in the past. Similarly, if we look at Port Phillip, that had a name for thousands of years. That was originally known as Nurm, is one of the names that it had there. And there are lots of stories that the Boonwurrung and the Wurundjeri people tell about Nurm, that it wasn't always this large expanse of water, that was in the last 1,000 years, it shrunk down to a tiny little lake with a small little river running through it. And those are really important things to recognise and celebrate as an eco-city in the future, I think. When we talk about the river, when we talk about Birrarung, and I imagine the future of this city here, that's one of those things I imagine us engaging with in a much fuller way. I imagine a place where it's a really hot day and you can go and jump in Birrarung and have a swim, and that's not seen as a completely insane thing to do. That would be a wonderful thing, to actually connect our city to the river. We had this amazing opportunity when Federation Square was put in to actually reconnect that whole space to the river, and somehow we failed to do that. You don't even know that the river is there sometimes if you're in Federation Square, and I think in the future, all of the spaces all along the river would really connect to that and draw us down into that space. As well as connecting to the river, I imagine the city of the future, this eco-city of Melbourne, would actually recognise the geography of the city. We often see Melbourne as this grid, this flat grid. Have you walked from one side of Melbourne across to the other? It is not a flat place. And by showing it constantly as this flat thing, we're ignoring the geography of this place. We're ignoring some of the opportunities that come through that geography, of recognising where the valleys are, where the gullies are, of recognising where those waterways would have been that we can reintroduce as an eco-city. There is only one very small spot that I've been able to find in Melbourne where you can actually still see the rock upon which this city is built. And it's down a very small laneway and down another small laneway down in Melbourne. Don't go there by yourself, but you can find your way there eventually, and you can see the earth, the rock, and we forget that. And when we put this grid and make it flat, that helps us forget that. And I think by reconnecting with that, that would be a very powerful thing to do. We also, I would hope, in the future, embrace the seasons of this place, so that we would recognise the seasons that have been recognised in this place for thousands of years. The Kulin groups talk about 6, 7 or 8 seasons, some of them talk about, that we had here in this place. So I would like to think that in the future, when we come to March, we recognise that that's eel season, and we know the eels are coming back up the river. When we get to August, We can recognise that now the orchids are going to be flowering, and we can see that around us within this city. When we get to September, we can go and we can harvest some murnong, and that's going to be another way of connecting and understanding those seasons and this place where we actually are at. And that's really powerful, this idea of having this native vegetation reintroduced into the city in a way that's usable. I imagine in the future, I'll be outside the State Library and I'll be able to get a workshop on how to do basket weaving with grass we pick right from that spot. That we can actually engage with our environment, engage with our landscape. That's one of those things I imagine in the future. I imagine that we have a place that actually embraces our cultural identity, the Aboriginal cultural identity that we have here. That the buildings, our streets, further reflect that culture. That I can see the traditional markings of my people represented in the streets and in the artwork that we have around us. And that would help us connect to this place, and that's what I think is an integral part of being an eco-city of the future. I also think it's about embracing the values that have been in this place for tens of thousands of years, of embracing this idea of caring for country, of connecting to the landscape, of knowing that we're only going to take as much as we need and look after it. And we can do that in all the little things that we're doing throughout the city. It doesn't mean we have to take on big tasks. It can just be as simple as recognising that when you recycle that can of drink, you're connecting to country, you're caring for country through that action. And that could be one of the things we're doing in this eco-city of the future. Another key part of this, as well as our embracing and engaging the place, I think it's going to be also really important in this city of the future that we're re-evaluating our own expectations of what the city can offer us or what we should be getting from the city and how we should be living our lives in the city. I think it would be great that our expectations aren't that open space means mown grass, that open space can mean much more than just that. That would be a great expectation that we can get rid of. Also, that we don't just expect that we can have any food that we want all throughout the year, that we recognise those seasons, and that means we're going to have different foods throughout the year. That should be part of this eco-city of the future. We can recognise that things don't have to always just stay the same. A lot of what I see all around us today is trying to just keep everything the same all the time throughout the year. We should be accepting that the river's going to go up, the river's going to go down. We might have new creeks coming in places, they might come, they might go. Things are going to change throughout the year, and that's the way things are supposed to be. It's not supposed to be the same throughout the year. If it gets really cold, we should just go and put on some more jumpers. If it gets really hot, we open up the windows of our buildings, we let the air come in, and we go and we have a siesta in the middle of the day because now it's too hot to do things. Now, that could just be because I have a 1-month-old at home and I'm looking for any chance to have a nap throughout the day. But I think that is one of the things we're going to be doing in the future. We're going to re-evaluating every little part of our lives to better connect with the place that we're actually at. And that's my vision for the city of the future here in Melbourne.